I love Mario and Sonic, and no, I don't mean the Olympic Games, these are pretty meh. I love the Mario series and the Sonic the Hedgehog series. They're two of the most iconic characters in all of gaming, and their games are some of my favorites of all time. These two were in direct competition in the 90s, representing Nintendo and Sega with stellar 2D platforming games, but those are a topic for another day. Today I'll be focusing on each series' transition to 3D in Super Mario 64 and Sonic Adventure, neither of which I have much nostalgia for. I played some 64 at a friend's house, and I remember having some GameCube demo disc with Sonic Adventure on it, but that's it. So I decided to give both a playthrough present day and see which one is superior, and I'm not gonna lie, I think it's Sonic Adventure. Now before you fill the comments with hate and death threats, just wait, hear me out, and leave your criticisms for the end of the video. And with that said, let's dive into these two revolutionary video games. Before I begin any sort of argument, I want to say that I'll be playing both of these on their original hardware, exactly as they were intended to be. I could play 64 on Switch and Adventure on my PC with the better SADX mod for the best possible footage, but I really want an authentic experience with both of these games, so we're playing on the Nintendo 64 and Sega Dreamcast. With that cleared up, let's talk about how well each game controls with their original controllers. I'll start with Mario 64. I know the N64 controller was very innovative and experimental, and I respect it for that, but I've never been a fan of actually playing games with it. However, the controller was designed to be used with this game, and because of that it doesn't feel awful, but still not anywhere close to good. I'm very tempted to use my Brawler 64. Its modern design makes it super comfortable to use, but if I'm gonna go out of my way to use the original console, I have to stick with the original controller. So, moving Mario in this 3D environment feels sensational with an analog stick. It's just too bad the analog stick it was designed to be played with sucks. Moving it around is clunky and choppy, and the grip sucks. It works okay for this game, but is far from ideal. It really does do a phenomenal job at showing how important a joystick is to 3D video games, so I give it props for that. Other than a subpar analog stick though, the controls are great. It's an uncomfortable controller, but once you get used to playing this game with it, it doesn't affect the experience a whole lot. Even the camera is pretty good. It's not very smooth and nowhere near as good as cameras today, but it's the first game to have to solve the problem of a 3D camera, and it's a pretty stellar first attempt. Some games that released after this didn't even have cameras as nice as this one. This generation is notorious for terrible cameras, but this game handled it really well. The arrows on the controller for camera movement work great. The left and right buttons move it to certain spots in your left and right, up and down move it further away and closer, and R centers it behind you. It's not perfect and can really suck at times, but it really does work well overall, and is one of the better camera systems of the time. Now on to Sonic Adventure with the Dreamcast controller, and this feels incredible. I don't love the Dreamcast controller, but I do like it a lot, and it's miles better than the N64 controller, which is to be expected from a newer console. The stick is way closer to what we have today, and while the grip on it is plastic and not very comfortable, it moves very smoothly, and I can't complain. Camera control, however, is a lot better in Mario 64. The Dreamcast controller doesn't have a C-stick or buttons, and because of that, camera control is limited to the L and R triggers. But you know what? Moving the camera left and right is usually plenty. The camera moves itself to give you the best view of where you're going, and for the most part it does the job. The game is less focused on exploration anyway, so camera control is less necessary, but when you do need to look around and explore like in the Hub World or Knuckles levels, the camera really hurts the experience. For the most part though, it really isn't much of an issue. It does a decent job at showing you what's ahead on its own, and because of that, the lacking in dated camera control is less noticeable than in 64, which makes it just a bit easier to play today. In terms of moveset, both games add a lot of new abilities to better suit the new dimension, and they're all really beneficial. Starting with Mario 64, Mario can now kick and punch, pick stuff up, dive forward, ground pound, triple jump, long jump, wall jump, backflip jump, and crouch jump. That's quite a few new things. In fact, most of his moveset is entirely new for this game, as Mario didn't have much more than a standard jump before. Most of the unique moves were from different power-ups, and this game brings none of those back, instead opting for different caps that grant Mario special abilities. There's the wing cap that allows you to fly through the sky after a triple jump, the metal cap which makes you too heavy to be pushed by wind, water, and enemies, and the invisible cap which lets you walk through enemies in certain walls. They're all fun to use, and I really don't miss any of the old power-ups. These are awesome. So yeah, Mario's moveset in this game is pretty great, and everything controls pretty well too. Sonic Adventure has a ton of different gameplay styles and playable characters, therefore way more movesets, but for the sake of this moveset comparison, I'll stick to Sonic and briefly discuss the other characters at a later point. Most of Sonic's 2D moveset was brought back for his debut third dimension outing, like the spin dash and the jump. Yeah, neither of these guys had much of a moveset in the 2D games, but not a whole lot was necessary, and I wouldn't have them any other way. Sonic's got way less additions though. The biggest addition is the homing attack, which acts as a second jump and allows Sonic to lock onto and hit enemies easier in a 3D space. This is a really important addition. Landing on an enemy is way more difficult with the Z-axis, and this makes it a lot easier. The lack of something like this in Mario 64 is a bummer, but not too big a deal. Sonic's speed-centric gameplay would suffer even more without it, as hitting enemies and moving on happens so much faster, and perfectly landing on an enemy would be a pretty daunting task. That's the only addition to his moveset though, besides the light dash upgrade that allows you to charge and zip through a series of rings, which is pretty fun to use, but not utilized very often. He plays just like he did in his 2D games, and I have no complaints with that whatsoever. The things they did add are much needed in this 3D space, but at its core it's the same. Both movesets are really solid, but overall I'd say Mario's is better, as it's way more versatile and fun to mess around with, but it really has to be with this more exploration and collecting based gameplay. Now before I get into the gameplay, I want to briefly mention the graphics and why I'm not going to compare these games based on that. For starters, I'm not one who thinks graphics are all that important in games. Good graphics are really nice to have and do improve the experience and make it much more pleasing to the eye, but if a game is lacking graphically, I'm not scared away from it. I play games for the gameplay, and if that's stellar, I don't care what it looks like. It's not fair to compare these games graphically anyways. I mean, look at this. Mario 64 came out in June 1996, and Sonic Adventure came out 2 years later in December 1998. And it's on next-gen hardware, so of course it's gonna look miles better. So let's move on to the elephant in the room, the gameplay of each game and the transition of each series from 2D to 3D. All main series Mario games up until this point were linear 2D platformers, and Mario 64 takes a more open-world approach, so the gameplay is therefore more exploration-based. There's still lots of platforming to be done, but collecting and exploring the world is way more of the focus of the game, which is very different from what Mario was previously known for. Nintendo didn't necessarily want to do this, but the console limited how many stages and worlds they could create, so they had to cram multiple objectives into a single area. They did a great job with this open-ended approach, but this is a huge fundamental difference between the 2D and 3D games. I'm not saying this is better or worse, but this isn't a transition to 3D, it's an entirely new type of game. There is platforming, but it's not the heart of the game. Most of the challenge of the game comes from exploring the worlds and searching for stars. In the 2D games, you play a linear level and reach a goal. The challenge doesn't come from finding where to go, it comes from trying to get there. This is a lot more fun in my opinion than looking around to find what you're supposed to do. When you start a level, the start gives you a hint at what you're supposed to do, and then you're thrown into a world and have to figure out what the hell it meant. Some levels have more linear sections and the Bowser levels are entirely straightforward, but most of the time you're just wandering around, and that's what this game primarily relies on for gameplay, exploration. The worlds are very interesting to explore though, they feel alive and there's tons of secrets that feel super rewarding to discover. It's a great time, it really is, but that type of gameplay isn't as fun as challenge-based gameplay to me, and that's exactly what Sonic Adventure offers. The game has several linear stages that are designed so incredibly well, with tons of branching paths, super speedy sections, and tough platforming. This is the perfect transition to 3D for the Sonic the Hedgehog series. The levels are very similar in structure, progression, and, as mentioned earlier, his moveset is pretty much the same. 2D Sonic level design is all centered around different routes for differently abled players. The more experienced players can take the super quick timing-based routes that are super satisfying to pull off, while those playing the level for the first time won't be able to react in time to access the faster routes and have to take a slower, more challenging and platforming heavy route. This forces the player to get better at the game, and as you replay levels, you'll begin to memorize where those shortcut spots are located and react in time to progress in a much more timely manner. That's how most 2D Sonic levels progress, and this game does the exact same thing with level design, which is awesome and makes each level a blast to replay and improve at. What this game refers to as action stages are amazing, but these stages are split up and you've got to traverse and explore a hub world to find the next one. This is the part of the gameplay that's pretty lacking. It's not super expansive, so finding your way around isn't too hard, but the bad camera control stings the most here. Indoor sections and small spaces really make the camera struggle to show you what you need to see, but the more open areas are fine. The smaller sections also suffer from Sonic's insane speed. It's really hard to move with precision, so when the game expects that of you, especially in the hub world, it sucks. These things aren't that bad though, and they don't lower the overall experience all too much. Everything progresses quite smoothly. I'm never like, yes, time to explore the world, but I'm also never like, exploration? Mario 64 has the incredibly apparent edge when it comes to exploration, but Sonic Adventure has much more interesting level designs and enjoyable gameplay. Speaking of which, yeah, we've just been talking about the Sonic levels. There's 6 playable characters that all play a little differently. I'll quickly discuss each style in the order they're unlocked. First up is Sonic, and we've already talked about his gameplay and levels, so next up is Tails, who can fly for a little bit and has a spin attack. His levels are built the same as Sonic's, but with the ability to fly, there's tons of new shortcuts to take, and the objective of each level is to reach the end before Sonic does. These are fun, not as good as Sonic's, but if you beat that story mode already and want more gameplay like it, the Tails levels do the job. Then Knuckles, who walks a little slower, can glide, punch, and climb walls. His levels are all scavenger hunts. You explore a small area and have to search for 3 emerald shards. There's a radar at the bottom of the screen that indicates how close you're getting to an emerald, and it works pretty well. These slower moving, exploration-based levels are fun, and a nice change of pace from the high-speed Sonic and Tails levels. Then there's Amy, and she's even slower than Knuckles, has a single jump and a hammer. In these levels, you're escaping from one of Eggman's robots in the slowest fashion ever, and these are so boring. There's not a whole lot to them, just avoiding a robot and a couple small obstacles in the most mundane way possible. Jeez, I don't think a gameplay style in this game could be oh hi, Big the Cat! In these levels, levels you help Big Catch Froggy in a fishing simulator-esque manner. I have no idea why this is even in the game, but it's not fun. It's not that it's particularly bad, but this isn't good, and it's really slow. Even if you get a hang of it, it's the same thing from one level to the next and should really be passed over. And last but not least, there's E102 Gamma, and these levels are a lot of fun. He's only got a single jump, but you have a gun that allows you to lock onto different targets and blast away waves of enemies. For a big robot, he still moves pretty quick, and the levels never feel like they drag, which is a really good thing. That's a lot of gameplay styles, and while none of those are really selling points, they really offer a great variety of experiences. To rank the characters and their gameplay, I'd say Sonic's is best, followed by Tails, E102, Knuckles, Amy, and Big the Cat. Those last two are the only ones you should actively avoid. The rest are all at the very least worth giving a shot. Sonic's gameplay by itself is why I prefer the game to Super Mario 64, but all the others just give you so much more to do, and yeah, they all have their own respective flaws, but I still think they're a good time. But what really puts this game miles ahead of Mario 64 in my eyes is the game's personality and presentation. Mario 64 is very generic, and yes, it was the first of its kind and had every right to have a more standard personality, but that really doesn't make it all that appealing to go back and play. The story's pretty much non-existent, the level themes are, for the most part, pretty basic, and the audio and visuals lack the slightest bit of character. Sonic Adventure, on the other hand, is full of personality and attitude. Just look at the cover art of both of these games. Mario's just like, wahoo! And Sonic's like, yeah, this is happening! While I won't go into it in detail, the story's got some stakes and is pretty entertaining the entire way through, though it kinda sucks that you can't experience the entire thing unless you beat all 6 story modes. But the dialogue between characters is incredibly well written and enjoyable to watch, unlike those god-awful exchanges in the more recent Sonic games.
I'll supply the brains. You will supply the brawn I need to get past the Zeti.
Oh, and you're asking so nicely.
Good one, buddy.
Thanks.
Man up, Tails.
Anyways, the level themes are way more interesting, bursting with color and personality, and the soundtrack, holy shit, the soundtrack is phenomenal. Sonic games having an amazing soundtrack is kind of a given nowadays, but this just might be my favorite video game soundtrack of all time. Every song in this game is an absolute bop that I've listened to a 10-hour loop of at some point in my life. I mean, Open Your Heart, Casinopolis, Unknown from ME, Skydeck, Dr. Eggman's theme, Be Cool, Be Wild, Be Groovy, the da-da-da-da-da. Are you fucking kidding me? This song slaps hella more than it has any right to, and fully captures the essence of this game. It's got so much attitude and funk, and is exactly what a Sonic the Hedgehog game should aim to be. I'm not saying this game is perfect, it's not, but it is one of the most well-rounded Sonic games I've ever had the pleasure of playing. And yeah, it hasn't aged super well, but if you're a Sonic fan, this is one of the better 3D Sonic games, and you should definitely play it. Do it on Steam though, that's the version I'll be playing when I eventually revisit it. Just download the better SADX mod. I mean, look at how nice it makes the game look. While modern day I'd much rather play Sonic Adventure, the lasting impact of Super Mario 64 makes it the far more important game. Its significance really cannot be overstated. It literally set the standard for all 3D video games that came after. This thing had nothing to go off of and still came out to be a pretty damn good game. This is such a revolutionary video game and a pioneer like no game before it or since. Yes, Super Mario Bros. For the NES was incredibly important to gaming, but I think Super Mario 64 is even more so. It's the reason we have the games we do today, and the fact that it did so much right despite winging the entire thing is truly miraculous. I'm really glad I sat down and played both of these games all the way through. Now, they weren't all that great, but they've given me a better understanding of and respect for each series and their 3D roots. Sonic Adventure is definitely the definitive game by today's standards. The stellar level designs still hold up, it's bursting at the seams with personality, and is the more faithful transition to 3D. Mario 64 isn't that bad to play through though. The magic of exploring the worlds and discovering secrets is still there, even 25 years later. It is harder to get into, but once you get past the controller and accept the open world gameplay for what it is, you'll have a good time. And with those closing thoughts out of the way, now you can spam the comments with how much of a fucking idiot I am for saying Sonic Adventure is better than Mario 64. Please don't, though. Thank you so very much for watching this video. If you like what you see, leave a like, and if you want to see more and help the channel grow, please subscribe. If you're looking for another video to watch after this one, I highly recommend my Sonic Riders video. It's a really, strange racing game, but definitely one of the most fun ones I've ever played, so check that out. Hold up, last minute decision. Okay, I'm not gonna do this for every patron I get, but for the first guy, thank you so much, Christopher Hurt, for your support. I really appreciate it. First guy, thanks a lot. Anyone else want to support me? There's a link in the description. I'd really appreciate it. Your name will appear in a credit section at the end of the video, but for the first supporter, I figured I would do a face-to-face shout-out and thank you. But yeah, see you guys later.